Hey everybody, welcome back to the Boomer Real Estate Podcast. Now you hear a lot of millennials griping about how difficult it is to buy a home right now.
Yep.
But what they don't realize is that real estate's all about finding the right time to buy, which in my instance was 30 years ago.
People always ask me, Bill, how'd you time the market so perfectly? And for me, I knew the exact time to buy was when I turned 27, just got married in 1990. I was working at the GM plant at the time, put down $18K on a $90K property, and that is now worth $600K.
You know, and so instead of buying avocado toast, I went ahead and looked at the landscape and then was purposely born 30 years prior to that into a generation that had a much better wealth creation engine.
It's about timing your birth as much as it is about timing the market. You might have also noticed the price of college degrees going up at a time when more employers are requiring those college degrees, which is precisely the reason I chose to not be born in that era and carry that debt. But you'll notice a lot of millennials are too lazy to do that, and they just end up being born when they're born.
That's a huge mistake.
Yep.
And look, you need to have the discipline to make sure that your generation encourages government policy to drive the prices up to increase your wealth while suppressing the wealth of the next generation.
That's another thing I use my market timing abilities to avoid being on the receiving end of. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy that made $500K on a single real estate deal. Haven't done it again since, one and done, retiring with the perfect record.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. I as well am batting 1,000 with the one primary residence I purchased.
Lastly, I will say, in your golden years, a reverse mortgage is a great way to suck that equity back out of the home, live lavishly in your final years, and ensure none of that wealth does get inherited by the next generation.
No handouts over here, assuming that you follow our market timing steps.
The boys.
It's the BOYSCAST.
The lads.
It's the BOYSCAST.
The dudes.
Prepare yourself for BOYSCAST.
The bros.
It's the BOYSCAST.
The homies.
It's the BOYSCAST.
The dudes.
Experience the BOYSCAST.
The boys. Cast.
We are here at the Boys Cast with a very special guest. Jimmy Dore is in the studio. And actually, one thing that I thought it was funny to mention was I actually had this idea for a sketch that I always went back to and I was going to do it and then I didn't. And then you basically tweeted kind of what I was going to do, which is everything I don't agree with is right wing now.
Yeah.
It's something like that. And then basically you were tweeting that and I think it went viral or like did really well. And I was just like, all right, I just like took it off my list.
You know what? Actually, there's a young lady who works for us called Misha Paulin, and she did a video that exact thing. So I was just kind of copying her video. She did a very funny video about everything I hate is right wing.
Yeah.
And she like gets a paper cut. And she goes, "Oh, racist," stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so she's really funny. So I think that's where I got it from. So, well, your sketches are always very funny. So it's
Thank
good to
you,
see,
yeah.
good to see you don't want to repeat.
No, you can't. Once the point's been made, then you're like a week later, it doesn't need to be made anymore. I feel like there's so much stuff to ask you about that you probably that you have a super, high level of knowledge on. But the first one, just what's going on right now, I feel like you know better. What's happening in Maui? It was like, because I feel like it started being, there's like some conspiracy stuff that there's more kids missing. And then there's also sort of a version of, people saying it's climate change, and then people saying it's not. What's actually going on?
Well, what's actually going on is UFOs have infiltrated Maui's.
Yeah.
And they're using blue lasers. No, I don't know. Have you seen that stuff? That people say that the house is painted blue. Have you heard that?
I saw that, with the umbrellas, that there was something like these blue umbrellas that were saved or whatever because of...
They're saying that it's the laser is calibrated to not burn stuff that is blue. Now, I'm sure you could calibrate it to do that. But what I think happened was it's not climate change. I don't think it was some kind of energy weapon. What I do think is that I think there was an electric power line that went down, and then for whatever reason, their state-of-the-art emergency system, they didn't decide to turn them on, and then the guy even defended it. Well, didn't want to do that because that's for tsunamis, and it's just like, so they're lying, and then you find out that they also didn't give water to the firemen, because that's what my big question was, how come I don't see any pictures of firemen being heroic? And the reason is it's because they cut off their frickin' water.
Yeah, you think to see fires like that close to the to the ocean, right?
Yeah, and so there's a lot of, and then you find that reports that the cops were turning people back into the fire. They wouldn't let them stop. Yes, eyewitness accounts of the cop trying to get out and the cops stopping them, blocking them. I saw a video which I just showed on my show on Monday. People driving through the smoke, and they got through. There was the dark smoke, and then it got white smoke, and they go, "Oh, it's getting better because it's white smoke. That means it's fire." And then they saw blue sky, and as soon as they did, cops stopped them, turned them around to go, tell them to go the other way. So there's a lot of things, and plus, if you know anything about Maui, then the government, it's super corrupt, which is why that guy's the police chief. That guy who's the police chief in Maui.
Is he like boys with them?
He was the guy who was the police chief at the Las Vegas.
The Las Vegas shooting, right? Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he got the most cush job in the world.
That is a pretty solid job.
Isn't that wild? That doesn't seem suspicious at all. And so what I think it was an electrical fire, and then they did, if they were that incompetent, because a lot of people are saying, well, they did it on purpose, like they didn't put the siren on purpose, which they didn't. That
Yeah.
was on purpose.
You think it's mostly incompetence?
They cut the water off on purpose. So if it is incompetence, Kurt says on my show, he goes, that's worse than if they did this on purpose.
Yeah.
Because they can be that incompetent. That's stunning. So I think it was a little of two things. I think it was incompetence, and I think there was some nefarious stuff going on too.
Why are
That
people
guy's a criminal. I'll tell you what. The guy who's the police chief of Maui is a criminal. Every time I look at him, every one of my sensors goes off, and my gut is that guy is a criminal, and all you have to do is look, and you don't have to look very close to find out what that guy's a criminal. So
he does have sort of a Weasley persona.
He's a criminal.
Do you think he's just like, what does criminal mean? Like he's getting, pale, like all that sort of stuff?
I think whatever you can think of, he's probably involved in.
Yeah, I mean, one of the stories was essentially that like in Hialeah or whatever, that real estate is super desirable, and that the people who are living there, they're essentially like they can't come back because they're going to redevelop it, and the people who are living there are not going to be able to afford to now live there, essentially. So that's people were saying like that was kind of, there was some backroom stuff to essentially just let it burn so that they could just get rid of the people they've been trying to get rid of for a long time.
Right, and you can't. And that was, you couldn't like build there. From what's just my understanding was because that's like not sacred, but it was like protected land.
Yeah.
Right. And so this would be the only way you could.
Yeah, this is the only way.
Isn't that wild? The only way you could get it. And then the cops were unbelievably incompetent. They cut off the water to the fire department. They didn't turn on their sirens. It's all just a coinkydink.
Right. So you think if it was the incompetence thing more with these kind of things, basically what happens is it's probably like it worked out. Maybe it's like, let's not stop it, but we're like orchestrating fires.
So I have an eyewitness I'm going to be interviewing on my show when I get back, which won't be for maybe a week or so, who says that they saw a suspicious guy lighting fires. So if that's true, I don't know, but there's an eyewitness.
Feds.
There's an eyewitness that said they saw a suspicious character lighting fire. So I'm going to I don't know. I'm going to interview that person. I've been connected with that person through a mutual.
See what they say.
And see what they say. Now, there was another eyewitness account that said they saw the cops stopping traffic. There was another eyewitness account that said the cops actually told them to turn around and go back into the fire. Eyewitness accounts of them guys getting their hose and the firemen showing up and they go, we don't have any water. So this is all real. I'm not making up any of this stuff. This is all real. And they don't want you to ask. Again, what they want to do is they want to highlight people saying stuff like, a laser weapon or some kind of. They want to do that because look how.
Yeah, they want to discredit you.
They want to discredit
the kookiest take possible.
Anybody who's asking questions is a crazy, and hey, those people who are calling other people crazy, they just don't want you asking questions because it might hurt Joe Biden's reelection campaign.
Sure,
and that's what this is all about. So they want to make anybody who's asking questions is a crazy conspiracy nut. But the people who are saying those people are crazy conspiracy nuts are the biggest conspiracy nuts in the world. There's no crazier conspiracy in my lifetime than Russiagate. Russiagate was a hoax from start to finish that was perpetrated by the DNC, the Clinton campaign, and the FBI and the CIA, and Barack Obama knew it was a hoax. They all knew. The head of the FBI knew. And how do I know that? Because there's open testimony in court that said they knew that. The head of the FBI said he briefed Barack Obama. The head of the FBI said he knew that this was a hoax. That's how I know that, but it never gets reported in the media because the media reported Russiagate as fact for 7 straight years. The Durham report comes out. Nobody reads it. Nobody even knows what the Durham report is. Again, because it doesn't get reported on corporate television because the establishment doesn't want you to know that Russiagate was all made up. Because if you knew Russiagate was all made up, then you wouldn't want to be for the Ukraine war because the Ukraine war is all based on Russiagate, which is why I was against Russiagate from the moment it started. And I told everybody at the Young Turks, Cenk Uyger, and every other dumbass over there to stop repeating FBI, CIA talking points because you have Trump derangement syndrome. Because what this is going to do is lead to censorship and a war. And that's exactly what it's led to. And none of those people are apologetic. They don't care that hundreds of thousands of people are being slaughtered in Ukraine and used as cannon fodder in an economic war from NATO and the West against Russia and China. And we are crushing. We did them. Don't you feel like an asshole if you got an electric car, got rid of your gas stove, and then they blow up the Nord Stream pipeline? Those same people telling you to get an electric car and get rid of your gas stove are the people who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, the biggest ecological disaster in history. And they did it on purpose because what the NATO and the West has always feared was Germany and Russia coming together. They feared Russia's manpower and Russia's natural resources coming together with Germany's capital and their engineering. And that's why we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And that's why we're tanking. We're doing it to Europe. And I don't understand why Europe puts up with it, but it's just maybe if you look at a map of where all the NATO bases are, that'll tell you why U.S. is the hegemon. But we're losing that right now because what Joe Biden and the neocons are doing right now is way worse than anything that Trump ever did. And they're doing exactly what they said Trump was going to do. He's alienating our friends. He's meaning Joe Biden and his neocon administration is they're creating now economic alliances to thwart the United States. Right, we have BRICS, right, which is Russia, China, South Africa, India, Brazil, and places in Africa are coming together, and they're going to oppose us now economically. Guess what? Saudi Arabia started selling oil in other denominations besides the U.S. dollar. That is catastrophic for the United States economy. All this stuff they're doing, and they said Donald Trump was going to be the impetus to do this and wreck our economy and get the world to turn against us. It's exactly the opposite. Donald Trump was the one who wanted to take our troops out of the Middle East, which is why they Russiagated him in the first place, and because he said there was a deep state, and he ran on stopping our Middle East wars. He wouldn't bomb Syria. He wouldn't bomb he wouldn't send arms and stuff to Ukraine. That's why they impeached him. So that's what this is all about. This is a military-industrial complex. The same people who own the military-industrial complex own Joe Biden, own your corporate media, which is why the American people are the most propagandized people in the world, and they have no idea. The difference between the United States being a citizen being propagandized and someone in the former Soviet Union or someone in China is they know they're being propagandized. People in America literally think Sean Hannity and Rachel Maddow and Anderson Cooper are telling them the truth. Anderson Cooper gets $12 million a year. $10 million of that comes from Big Pharma. You think that guy ever told you the truth about anything? He's a former CIA man, Anderson Cooper. But literally, people think when they open the New York Times,
in the CIA?
Yes, he was.
What did he do?
So I don't know what he did. He's in the CIA. But
jerk off patrol.
Yeah.
So probably Operation Mockingbird. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
It's not over, by the way. So the news media, they used to have to infiltrate with CIA people. Now they bring the head of the CIA right on their news show and ask him questions like he's a reliable source. Sure. What you're supposed to do is bring someone on to tell you what lies the CIA guy just told. But that's not what they do anymore. They bring the CIA guy
like he's on a press
because
tour.
of Trump.
Yeah.
Because of Trump. And these are all good people, and Trump's the bad person. And so they have to make Trump out to be a 30-foot tall Hitler in order for you to vote for a guy who's an enemy of the people, who promised to veto health care in the middle of a pandemic and just crushed the workers' union and the railroad strike. That's real fascism. And that's what the Democrats are all pushing. Every asshole in Hollywood is for it. They don't think for themselves, and they shame you if you try to think for yourselves. You saw that bit I had about people don't do your own research. Before COVID, doing your own research just meant reading. And that's how fucking stupid asshole comedians are in Hollywood, that they're literally shaming people for trying to get informed. You're supposed to do the other thing. You're supposed to shame people for not getting informed and following fucking rules without questioning. That's the opposite of comedy. And every asshole who has a fucking podcast or a goddamn comedy special that I saw in the last 3 years said that shit, told people to not look into it, trust Big Pharma and trust government. It's the exact opposite of being a comedian. And if you're doing that, you're not a comedian, you're a fucking propagandist.
Yeah, well said.
That is
cooking, Jimmy. Cooking.
I mean, it is very
Do you see those fucking comedy specials? Do you see those fucking assholes?
there's some good stuff out there too, but yeah.
Do you see those assholes?
I mean, they're in that system, and they know that there's the allowable things that you can say to remain there, or you start saying certain things, and they go, "Okay, you're in this basket," and you're like, you can't be involved with us anymore. And people are just, it's like cushy, you know?
Yeah, people are cowards.
Yeah, they're cowards,
People are
and they're
cowards,
comfortable.
and that's a betrayal of fucking comedy, and those aren't real
Same with
comedians.
journalism, too.
Those are cocksuckers.
Like, imagine if CNN came out tomorrow and they go, you know what? We've been wrong for the last fucking decade. Eggs on our face. Like, we fucked that one up. Sorry, everybody. People are like, all right, well, then we're going to turn this shit off. Like, why would we ever watch you? They almost can't even admit to it. Like, everybody knows. And you just...
Well, why would they ever admit to it? Because
no one cares when it does come out anyway.
The people who... That's exactly right. You're exactly right. Like we found out that they lied to us about 9/11, about Saudi Arabia's involvement, and all they want to do is make the guy who's telling CNN that out to be some kind of a crazy. It's happening right now with Vivek.
Yeah, Vivek. Yeah.
They're trying to push this thing like he's some kind of 9/11 truth. So they're not angry.
They won't even address that.
They're not angry that the government lied to them. They're angry that someone told them that someone lied to them.
And why is Vivek...
That's what's called an adult child of an alcoholic, and we're a fucking country full of adult children of alcoholics. We don't get upset at the guy who's beating us. We get upset at the guy who told us that there's a guy beating us. And that's what CNN is, and that's all fucking Hollywood. All my ex-friends, comedians, they all got their heads up their ass on purpose, and they're go-along fucking suck-ups, and this exposed them. So if this was 1940, we know who would have went along with the fucking Nazis. All those cocksuckers telling people not to do their own research on their comedy specials. Those motherfuckers would have went right along with the Nazis because it would have been better for their career, which is why they went along with it this time, because it was better for their career. And fuck those people.
No.
I feel like there's so many different questions I want to ask about that.
And none of those people will ask me on their show. None of those people, all those people who talk shit about me on fucking social media, not one of them has asked me on their show to try to interrogate me about all the shit I was right about on COVID. I was right about where the fucking virus came from, and they lied to you about it. They said you were a white supremacist if you said the virus came from a lab. But and it did come from a fucking lab that was funded by Dr. Fauci, and he lied to Congress twice about funding gain of function. And of course, he'll never be prosecuted because when you lie at the behest of the establishment, there's nobody there to prosecute you.
Yeah, because everybody has to basically admit that they're wrong and they're just giant fuck ups, right?
They lied about where the virus came from. They lied about funding the virus. They lied about masks. They lied about herd immunity. They lied about natural immunity. They lied that the vaccine would stop transmission and end the pandemic. They lied that said it would stop you from getting it. They lied and lied and lied. And now I was right about all those things, and no one will ever give me credit for it. No one will ever say that they were wrong for it. They're mad. I got vaccine injured, so I bought into it, right? So I bought into all the bullshit of. I was scared to death. because I have a bone condition, right, that almost killed me in 2006, and so I was convinced that if I got COVID, I was going to die because that's what the propaganda said, right? So I went. I was the first one in line to get the vaccine because I didn't want to die. I got the vaccine. I got vaccine injured. I got lucky. There was a doctor who was doing a study on people who were vaccine injured, and he was trying to figure out how to treat them, come up with a protocol. And so he's a follower of mine. So he contacted me and put me in the study. One of the first things he gave me was ivermectin. And I was like, hey, what are you doing? I don't want this horse poison. And he explained to me, he goes, Jimmy, He goes, that's propaganda. He goes, because if ivermectin could treat COVID, they couldn't get their emergency use authorization for their vaccines. If there was any kind of treatment that actually treated COVID, they couldn't get it. So that's why they told you that ivermectin was horse poison and hydroxychloroquine was some kind of fish tank cleaner. These are two of the most prescribed drugs in the history of the world, and it's been prescribed billions of times, saved billions of lives, and that's how powerful Big Pharma propaganda is. It can get comedians to repeat Big Pharma and tell, like Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel and all those other
Those
assholes.
guys are comedians?
And yes, and all those guys were calling it horse goo and you're an idiot. And Jimmy Kimmel even said that if you're taking horse goo, you shouldn't be given medical treatment if you're going to have a heart attack. You remember that?
Yeah, of course.
So, and Noam Chomsky said the people who were unvaccinated were trying to kill us. So that's when the people
That
who
guy
were,
took a turn, it feels like.
that
Heel
guy's
turn.
really revealing himself, right? To be just as big of a asshole, a guy who lacks character as the people he's critiqued all his life.
I think a lot of those guys would love being like the Hollywood guru sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like Sam Harris.
Who
too,
doesn't
sort of.
love being adored by tons of people? Like who, like, you know, to turn your back? Like if some big Hollywood guy is like, hey, you know what? This Russia stuff is like a ton of nonsense in the middle of it. People will be like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, you'd lose everybody.
So people aren't upset that they were lied to by the establishment. What they were upset was when I told people that I got vaccine injured. People told me stop saying that because it's going to make other people not get their vaccine. Well, that's exactly why I'm saying it. I don't want other people to take this goddamn thing because it's not tested. We have no idea what's going to happen. And by the way, it's killing people now, right? So now we know there's a thing called excess deaths. Of course, you don't know about it because it's not reported on the news. Excess deaths is they know how many people are supposed to die every week. So they take the numbers before COVID, and now they're taking the numbers after, and they're trying to see why are we having 20 to 30, 40% more deaths per week than we did before COVID. And it can't be from COVID because these are deaths that are not attributed to COVID.
There could be some other parts,
and
though,
it's
right?
happening in countries that have the biggest vaccine uptakes. Not happening in Africa because Africa took ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. And so they're not having these excess deaths, but we are having it in every country that took the vaccine. Isn't that amazing? And so whether this will ever come out or not, I don't know because medical research is completely corrupted. You can't do a randomized controlled trial without big money from Big Pharma or the government. So that's how they rigged the ivermectin trials the same way. There's plenty of studies that show ivermectin being working for COVID. And the people who are actually treating people on the front lines of treating them, they say it's the most wonderful drug for COVID that you could possibly have. So you know who does say it's bad? Guys like Dr. Fauci, who's getting paid by Big Pharma for the rest of his life, and it's never treated a patient in his life.
Isn't ivermectin like a penny a dose?
Yeah, you
too?
can't make
It's
money
like,
off it.
You can't make any money off it,
I let
right?
people go, well, the manufacturer Merck, they even say it doesn't treat COVID. You know why? Because Merck lost the patent. They don't no longer have a patent on ivermectin.
just a generic.
So they can't make any fucking money off it, you stupid propagandized idiot. Why don't you go back to the improv?
Have you heard? I guess it started popping up recently.
I mean, I walk into a comedy club. It's full of fucking assholes. It's full of fucking morons
There's
who
good
don't know the
comics.
first thing about goddamn comedy. In New York, maybe it's different. In Los Angeles, it's not good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're trying to be in the more. I feel like the Hollywood. They're trying to be more in Hollywood here.
Yeah.
There's comics here, I feel like.
Yeah, I guess maybe they're a little
They want you to stop reading. They want you to follow
I did
follow
that a
rules.
long time ago.
Yeah, TikTok
Follow rules. Don't fucking push back against authority. And by all means, make sure you vote for Joe Biden because he's your friend.
Yeah.
Joe Biden just crushed a railroad strike, which would have set the tone for workers from coast to coast for a generation.
Why'd he do that?
So what he did that because he's corrupt and he works for oligarchs. That's why. Because Joe Biden doesn't work for you. That's why he can send $100 billion to Ukraine and send $5 to Maui.
He sent $700, right? That's what they got. They got the $700 a piece.
Yeah, I guess whatever they got.
Just like what's enough
And
to
at the same
afford
time,
lunch
they
and-
weren't going to give that money to the people, even that $700 to the people. $700. They're pissing right in your fucking mouth, and people are taking it.
Yeah.
They're taking. We got to rely on volunteers to help people in the richest island in the richest country in the world. world. We have to rely on volunteers. Meanwhile, we're sending $100 billion at the same time, $124 billion to the most corrupt country in Ukraine without any oversight where that money's going. And I'll tell you where that money's going. It's going into the pockets of Zelensky and all his cronies, and it's going to weapons that are being sent to Africa and everywhere else in the world because we have no controls over where that shit's going, and they don't care. What they care about is getting that money out the door, and that's why $124 billion can go out like that. If they wanted to give us community college, which would cost like $8 to $12 billion a year, you'd have to talk about that for at least a decade or two, and you'd have to have town halls and op-eds written, and Anderson Cooper would have to roll up his sleeves and interview regular people. Is this really money necessary? But for $124 billion to the most corrupt country in the world, that's how you know it's 100% corruption, and it went right out. For they say we could end homelessness for $20 billion. So for $100 billion, we could have ended homelessness, started it again, then said we were just kidding and fucking ended it again. And we're just taking it. And so what we really need is a revolution. Bernie used to say that in 2015 and 2016, and he's never said it again because Bernie is also a fraud. Bernie Sanders was a fraud who's sheepdogging progressive revolutionary energy back into a pro-war, anti-worker, pro-Wall Street party. That's what the Democrats are. Son of a bitch, that's what the Republicans are.
Yeah.
Going to take a second here to tell you about Nextevo Naturals. Now listen, whether you need to de-stress, keep your sleep schedule on track this summer, CBD can help. And that's the big thing that I use the Nextevo Naturals for. I crank them late at night.
Yeah, my girl loves them.
Yeah, I've been pretty on Nextevo Naturals. I would say at least 2-3 times a week, depending on the situation, because my sleep schedule is all over the place. And you know that also I'm a stressed out man.
Yeah, stressed out man.
It can be, man. You're on those flights and stuff, man. It's all over the place.
Tough life.
But don't just settle for any CBD product. A recent study showed that the most CBD labels are way off. That is the big kind of pitch for Nextevo Naturals, is they actually are giving you the amount of CBD that says.
Yep.
There's a lot going on in that industry.
chicanery.
There is sort of a lot of chicanery in that industry. So
tomfoolery.
some products only offer 60% of what they claim. Melatonin products can also be very inaccurate. So Nextevo Naturals CBD delivers exactly what's on the label. Their products are tested before, during, and after they're made, so you know exactly what you're getting and what you paid for. So they can help you improve your mood, your sleep. They have gummies, capsules, all sorts of stuff. So recent lab study has definitely found that of the top CBD brands, this ain't the nobodies, as little as 60% of what the labels claim can be in that jar. So you want to make sure you're getting what you're paid for. Nextevo Naturals, they do their research, demonstrated by 4 clinical trials. No other CBD brand comes close. Nextevo Naturals got you covered for better sleep and wellness this summer. They have stress CBD complex gummies, which are clinically proven to reduce stress up to 70%. No prescription needed. Triple action CBD sleep calms your mind with fast absorbing CBD, then both fast acting and controlled release melatonin to help you sleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. So leave summer behind this summer and upgrade your CBD. Go to nextevo.com/boyscast to get 25% off. Plus, you get a free bottle of premium pure CBD, which is a $50 value and limit of 1 per customer. That is Nextevo, nextevo.com/boyscast. And we're trying to get people's bodies running right here, which is why I got to tell you about AG1.
Yeah.
Listen, you got to stay healthy. There's a million different multivitamins out there. This is the one that is everything you need. The first thing you do every morning, first thing I do every single morning, before I work out, before you run, before you do your day, before you eat. Yes,
it's while I'm making the coffee.
While you're making the coffee, you pop that in there. Boom, bang, bing. It's got a nice tropical taste. The mission is to empower people to take ownership of their health with a simple, daily, foundational nutrition habit. And AG1 has mastered the format where you will actually do it. I gave AG1 a try because, you're tired of taking supplements. You want a solution that supports your entire body, covers your nutritional basis every day. Better gut health, which is something we talk about this episode, but that's definitely something that I want. You want a boost in energy, immune system support. Maybe you just hate taking pills and vitamins. In my case, it's not so much hate as it's a hard thing to get into your mix.
It's just hard to get that habit going.
It's hard to get the habit
Very
going.
difficult.
And you want a supplement that actually tastes great. AG1's a foundational functional nutrition supplement that delivers comprehensive nutrients to support whole body health, science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, whole foods, source nutrients. Now listen, why take a bunch of things when you can just mix one scoop of powder and water once a day? AG1 was designed with ease in mind so you can live healthier and happier without having to complicate your routine. If you want to take ownership of your health, try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/boyscast. That is drinkag1.com/boyscast and check it out. Okay, so if you were to say, to go back to the original thing of like, okay, if they're wrecking the country, spending all the, why?
Because it's called looting. The people running the country are looting the country. Why did Big Pharma want to do mandates for vaccines that are untested? Because they made a couple of $100 billion. That's why. You know how much money $100 billion is? All the recording industry in America, every piece of music that gets recorded and released, $12 billion a year. Yeah. That's it.
I'm like, you could buy like the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, like all of them.
That's it. $12 billion. That's all the recorded music in America all year. Imagine we could have created, 5, 6, 7 recording industries for $100 billion that we people they can't wrap their minds around how hard they're being screwed or what that money could have done for the United States. And this is how all empires end, Brian. We overextend militarily and we don't take care. They won't even fix the bridges people live under, for fuck's sake. So, and our country's becoming Brazil if it isn't already. And if it wasn't for a couple of big cities, we would be Brazil.
Yeah.
It does. Okay, so how do you reconcile?
We are paying the salaries and the Social Security for government workers in Ukraine right now. And people in America are senior citizens. They can't afford their medicine. This is how empires end, and nobody gives a fuck because they're distracted by Donald Trump bad. Donald Trump is a Nazi. Donald Trump's a white supremacist. Donald Trump's a neo-fascist. You guys have been tricked by the media. Donald Trump is a fucking game show host who never wanted to be president in the first place. But what happened was the Democrats and Republicans were so repulsive to the average voter that they were willing to take a chance on a game show host charlatan, and they're willing to do it again, which is why.
What do you think is going to happen with him?
Which is why they're criminalizing him. So exactly what they said Donald Trump was doing, and that's why they called him a dictator and a fascist, was because he wants to criminalize his political opponents. When he said lock her up, Hillary Clinton, right? That's what they used against him to say he was a fascist, because that's only fascists do. They've been trying to criminalize Donald Trump since he won the presidency. They impeached him twice. They did Russiagate. It was all and now he has 4 indictments.
He's turning himself in tomorrow, right?
And every indictment
these do seem pretty creative when you look at the Trump stuff.
So you're not supposed to do this. So we've turned ourselves into so that the exact thing they accused Trump of doing, they're actually doing, and they couldn't be fucking prouder of it because the corporate media tells the American people that we're actually fighting crime and Donald Trump's a criminal. There is no bigger criminal in the country ever than Joe Biden. Joe Biden's a mass murdering enemy of the people. Every bad thing that's ever happened to workers, he's had a fucking hand in it. And you know why our prisons are full of black and brown people and the United States is the world's biggest penal colony? We fucking imprison more people than China. Raw numbers.
Yeah.
And why? Because of him. Because of Joe Biden and his crime bill, which he bragged about. He said, we hang you for everything except jaywalking. And he bragged about how you got put in jail for crack, except his kid.
Of course.
When his kid is on crack, everybody has to have compassion for Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. Well, I do have compassion for drug addicts. What I don't have compassion for is motherfuckers like Joe Biden and Hunter Biden who do whatever they want and imprison other people for doing the exact thing they're doing. Where's Joe Biden lobbying to get people out of prison who are addicted just like his kid? No, he's not doing that. That's because he's a fucking criminal and a maniac and a megalomaniac, and he's a complete puppet of corporations, which is why he's the president. Do you think Barack Obama would have became president if he was actually a radical black man? If he was actually going to do something for black people? The reason why Barack Obama became president was because he was going to do even worse shit than they could do with Dick Cheney and John McCain. That's why. What did he do? He took us from 2 wars to 7. He dropped more bombs than George Bush. The guy who got the Nobel Peace Prize dropped more bombs. He deported twice as many Hispanics as Donald Trump did. He built those cages that those fucking kids were put in. Who did that? Barack fucking Obama, he presided over a drone program that killed 90% innocent women, grandmas, and children. Barack Obama did that. If you walk into a mall and you mow down fucking 20 people, that you're the worst criminal ever. But if you do it with the drone bomb, you're called the greatest president of my lifetime.
Yeah.
Barack Obama came out of retirement twice. Once to squash the strike from the NBA, to squash that, to get him to stop, and the other time was to make sure Bernie Sanders dropped out of the race. Those are the two big things. That's
true.
So this guy could not be a bigger. And by the way, he's telling me that I got to change my life about climate change. You know, he's got a mansion in Maui. Barack Obama, he had to build a seawall, which is illegal because it destroys the rest of the seawall and the rest of the beaches. He got a cutout for that. Of
course.
For the next 50 years that he could have this seawall. He also has a 48-acre thing on Martha's Vineyard. He's got a house in Chicago. He's got all these mansions, and he's flying to them on Richard Branson's private jet. But which by the way, one private jet plane eliminates more carbon than your car does for your whole lifetime. So these motherfuckers are doing all this, and they're telling. So we live in completely corrupted times. 100%. Our government. People think our government is regular corrupted. Like, oh, Donald Trump got his kids set up with some Saudi Arabian billionaire, or Joe Biden got his kids set up on a no-show job on an energy board in Ukraine for a couple of $1 million. That they did that. That's regular corruption. What I'm talking about is nothing happens in this country unless it's corrupt. That's why we can't take care of the homeless people, and we can send $124 billion to the military-industrial complex. We won't give people health care. We won't give people education. People are starving. People are having their medications because they can't fucking afford them. Senior citizens. And people are angry at Donald Trump. Donald Trump did not do this to you. And January 6th, it's so amazing how the media gets people distracted with January 6th. January 6th was a bunch of yahoos who were pissed off at an election, just like the rest of the country was about the 2016 election. They were all pissed off, and they said it was stolen by Russia. Do you know that the 67% of Democratic voters think that Russia literally flipped votes in 2016?
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to say that about 2020. Those people thought the same thing, but somehow they're criminals. But the people who said it about Donald Trump's election in 2016, they're just good people trying to fight Russia.
Yeah.
So January 6th was a psyop by the FBI. Half those people got pushed into the Capitol. They're a bunch of gun nuts, right? So they're a bunch of gun nuts who showed up at the Capitol to overthrow the government. But son of a bitch, they forgot their guns. Isn't that the
That was the most
thing?
ridiculous thing, where people actually talk about that like they were trying, like it was a proper insurrection, like they were like the government was at risk that day.
If the government was at risk, they would have had fucking cops there.
I mean,
to
they have
stop
the most
them.
powerful military in the world. You're trying to tell me like we're not going to see any sort of
Cops got there from Pennsylvania faster than cops than the National Guard.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was a setup. That's what's called a setup, and that's what they did this so they could criminalize not only Donald Trump, but they could criminalize Donald Trump's political movement, which is what they did. Which is what that remember the red color speech that Joe Biden gave,
Yeah.
where he was all in red, and he
With the
said
centuries and
he
like-
said that the MAGA was an enemy of the democracy, and so that's called criminalizing and demonizing your political opponents, and
Seems
that's
like they're pretty good at it.
and they're great at it, and they go along with it, and they get ass wipes in the Green Party to go along with it too. So it just totally fucking takes them out of the picture. The Green Party went along with fucking Russiagate as they were Russiagating the Green Party, and why is that? It's because the Green Party is infiltrated.
yeah.
It does. Okay, so if when you talk about, for example, like homeless people, how to solve that, people don't have their meds. Like, what is because you're like a left wing guy, what would be because if you look at a lot of, how do you reconcile the point where if you look at a lot of the cities where you go, they got the most voted left, like a lot of times they have the most homeless people, and I guess when you look at the things you're saying, the problem is kind of with healthcare. You're just like, it would probably be good, but you're like, this is so corrupt, they'd probably make a mess of it. So what do you think should happen, basically? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
We have Well, the first thing I would do is institute universal health care, Medicare for all, like the rest of the Western world. And, we have private health care run by private corporations in America, and it's great. We pay twice as much as the rest of the world, and we have worse outcomes. And if you get
we're
really,
both Canadian, so
and if you get
we're
really sick,
well
you go
aware.
bankrupt. People say, well, I have to wait in Canada. I had to get a knee operation. I have to wait 2 months. I had to wait 6 weeks just to get a consultation for a gallbladder surgery. Just for a consultation, I had to wait 6 weeks for a consultation. I have Blue Cross. And so anybody who telling you that you don't have to wait in America for healthcare is obviously haven't used healthcare.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing
Or
I
I guess
would do.
if you can pay enough.
Yeah, I guess if you want to pay cash,
So that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
So I was afraid I was going to have another gallbladder attack because I had 2 of them. And I thought I literally had made peace. I thought I was dying. If you've ever had one, I was like, okay, this is how it's going to end. And so when they told me, okay, we're going to get you in 6 weeks for a consultation, I was like, hey, I guess we're going to have to take out a loan and go get a fucking another surgeon. So
How much does that cost? 100 grand or something?
So what I did, they paid, my insurance paid some, and then the hospital, I didn't pay the bill. So I was like, hey, I don't have any money to pay it. And they're like, can you pay half? And I was like, no. And they're like, okay.
And that's that. Yeah. Because I always have this argument with people because everybody always says it's so bad in Canada, and I've never really had to use any sort of healthcare here, but I always found it was okay. I never had anything super serious, but I always found it was fine.
You do have to wait. I remember I broke my nose and I had to get a thing, and it took me like 7 months. I had to walk around with a broken nose to get the thing, but just like whatever.
Well, you could make that better.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I think the UK
that's not
probably,
a case for
UK
getting
does
rid
it
of
better. Yeah,
that's not a case for getting rid of universal health care.
Okay, so if we
that's a case for making it better.
If you added universal health care, what is the things that they would actually do and how? Because if you
Well,
most of that corruption, how do you even like solve that?
Well, they can't
like
make
the
money
stuff you're
on
saying.
it, right? Like that's the incentives are wrong.
Well, the big problem is that our government is captured by corporate money. So you'd have to get rid of.
Feels like you have to solve that first.
So yeah, you're right. You're not going to get health care because the people, the corporations who own the politicians don't want us to have Medicare for all because there's a lot of money in medicine and health insurance and big pharma, and so that's why we'll never have it. So we have to get that money out of politics first.
How do you do that?
How you do that? We're gonna have to have a revolution.
Yeah, I was gonna say firing squads. I don't know. Like
I'm not kidding.
Like I don't know.
People are gonna have to get in the streets, and they're gonna just like what the truckers did in Canada, and they're gonna have to shut down capitalism, and they're gonna have to have a real leader that knows what the real problem is, and that fucking real leader isn't me, and a lot of people and it's not me, but it's got to be a real leader who and someone who understands the government and. Like someone like Bobby Kennedy, except he has a lot of flaws, right? So he has horrible policy on Israel, Palestine. He had to be told about Ukraine. He's good on Ukraine now. He had to be told about Russia. He couldn't figure these things out. But we need a real. I thought it was going to be Bernie Sanders. I thought Bernie Sanders and AOC, with their millions and millions and tens of millions of followers, would tell their followers to get in the streets and shut shit down. Hey, we're having a pandemic. People get in the streets, shut shit down until everybody gets Medicare for all. Nothing gets delivered from UPS. Nothing gets delivered to Ralph's or any superstore. No, nothing. We shut it down until we get, and that's what's has to happen.
And essentially, what are you trying to get? If you shut it down until you get what? Like these guys out of power?
You
your demands,
no more
your
like
demands
the lobbyists.
Yeah,
like
you have to make
can't
demands.
be fucking getting money from lobbyists. Like you can't be.
So I think
those kind of deals.
Public financing of elections. That's what we need. So and we shorten the election season to 6 weeks. So instead of it being 2 years,
It goes on for a while.
It's crazy. It's the first debates tonight.
yeah, you have. That's right. So you have a 6 week window to have your election, to have your campaign, and it's financed publicly. So there's no corruption. That's what I would do. That's why I would shut shit down until we had that system, at least on the federal level, and because that's why we can't have nice things like the rest of the world, and that's why our country is literally ending. As soon as the petrodollar goes away, which it's going away, they're selling, and people don't understand what that is. So the petrodollar is what artificially supports the U.S. dollar, and why we could put sanctions on everybody else's country because everybody else has to use dollar. So in the 70s, we went off the gold standard, and so we made a deal with Saudi Arabia that if you agree to only sell oil in U.S. dollars, we will give you the use of our military wherever you want it, which is why we're committing a genocide in Yemen and shit like that, right? And then why we were bombing in Syria. It's all at the behest of Saudi Arabia because they're willing to sell their oil in only U.S. dollars, and that artificially inflates the U.S. dollar. If we didn't have that, it wouldn't be shit. We wouldn't be able to run these deficits like this, and we wouldn't be able to do fiat currency. And so now, because of all the shit Joe Biden's been doing, Saudi Arabia started selling oil in the Chinese domination. I think it's called yuan.
Yeah, the one.
I think they sold it to India. So it's going away, and they're flexing their power. Again, one of our longest allies, Saudi Arabia, is turning against the United States, not under Trump, but under Joe Biden and the neocons. And so it's all over. I think the world is caught on, and now even countries in Africa, they're like, why do I have to go take my so if somebody in Africa, for instance, wants to trade with another country, they can't do it with their own dollar. They have to all go buy American dollars and then trade in American dollars.
Right.
And that's what every country in the world has done. And so that's what's going to, and that's what, so every country has to hold on to a big stockpile of American dollars, which artificially inflates the dollar. And as soon as they don't have to do that, the dollar's over, and so is our goddamn economy.
I guess the argument against that is you're always sort of like weighing. I feel like you're probably like a American dollar supremacist.
Currently
it's always compared to
only,
what, right?
Yeah, like currently it's if you go travel around the world, it's the only currency where you could spend anywhere.
Right.
Currently.
But
that's like if you I'm sure you know, like that guy Ray Dalio, whatever, he writes a lot about this stuff, and he's just like, yeah, it's been all throughout history where, you know, there've been these cycles and eventually they do end. You know, eventually there is whatever is the, you know, standard currency is eventually like loses its spot.
If I have to buy shit in yen, I'll be so pissed.
We just built 3 new military bases in the Philippines and 1 in Syria, so that doesn't end. That's the whole point of our military.
Right.
And if you've ever looked at a map at how many military bases the United States has around the world,
crazy.
Your eyes would pop out of your head. I show it on my show, and people think it's fake.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't. There aren't enough dots to put on the map. That's how many goddamn military bases we have. And that's why all those motherfuckers telling you that you got to eat bugs and you got to drive an electric car and you can't have nice things. At the same time, they're building military bases. Those same people. So that's why I say I'm not doing anything that the establishment tells me I'm supposed to do about climate change, because it's all bullshit. Just like recycling is bullshit. They used to send all our recyclables to China, right? China was like, hey, it's not economic for us to do this anymore, so they stopped taking our recyclables. And so you know where your recyclables go? In a fucking landfill.
Same place.
Yeah.
That's
Something
so,
like
I argue with
5
girls about that
It's
all the
honestly,
time.
I heard recently something like 5 or 10% of all plastic actually gets recycled, and the rest is just like landfill. Even like the stuff that goes into recycling,
Into your recycling bin. Even that stuff
Specifically, yeah.
goes into a landfill.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest people that are always about proponents of climate change, then when I tell them to stop showering, they don't want to do that. I'm, if anything, dudes, shower less.
Yeah.
I use 1 dish.
You don't got to tell me twice. One fork.
The biggest emitter of carbon in the world is
Cows.
the U.S. military. The U.S. military, and they keep building bases. So they're never going to stop, and they're never going to stop blowing up pipelines, and they're never going to stop blowing up shit. And so those people are full of shit when they tell you we have to fight climate change, because they're not. What they're doing is using climate change to control you.
Okay. That's, and it does. So, but when you talk about, this is one thing I did actually want to ask you about, because I was like, I heard Cenk Uyger. I know you used to work at Young Turks, and I heard him on like a few podcasts. And to be honest, he didn't seem like that crazy to me. You know what I mean? And I was, and I know you have a
don't
big,
seem crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, was it just,
charming.
was this like his new brand change where he's like, I'm going to be sort of normal?
Yeah.
And that's what's going on. Because I know you have I've actually heard you.
Because his audience fucking left him. That's why. And so
It's
now he's trying to pretend
self-preservation.
he's Jimmy Dore light. Now he's trying to pretend he's going to reach out to people. And we all got to fight. He's not. That's not real.
So did you guys?
Cenk Uyger takes money from the people we're supposed to be fighting. He took $24 million from DNC donors, establishment figures, and right-wingers. That's who Cenk Uyger is. And as soon as he did it, he started repeating FBI and CIA talking points about Donald Trump and Russiagate, which led directly to the Ukraine war, which I fucking told him it would.
So you guys are not friends, fair to say.
We still hang out.
Do you actually still talk to him?
No.
It's all kayfabe. He's just like in the back. Yeah.
Okay, so the gist is that, because they're sort of saying we're like mainstream progressive guys, and you're sort of saying like you're just part of the whole machine.
They're just part of the machine. Yeah, the Young Turks and Cenk Uyger.
Yeah, you guys are just the same thing as that deal.
Yeah, no, they're just. He's literally he's the machine.
I mean, they gave him a show. They have a channel on YouTube TV. It's fucking crazy. I have it. I'm like, why are you guys on here?
He's on YouTube TV. You think he's anti-establishment?
Yeah,
YouTube owned by Google. Google, which is the most richest company in the history of the world, in bed with the CIA and military-industrial complex, and that's who's sponsoring his TV show.
Yeah, like they have their own channel, like a 24-hour Young Young Turks on YouTube.
Okay.
TV.
YouTube fucking censors me. With the Young Turks, they put them on their TV network. Do you see
they
the
give 'em a
difference?
channel.
Do you see the difference? If they would have been against censorship, the Young Turks, which you're supposed to be as a progressive, which if they would have been against the Ukraine war, which you're supposed to be, they would have been against the Syrian war, which you're supposed to be as a progressive. If they would have fucking been against anything or Russiagate, if they would have not repeated, they would not have gotten that TV channel, and they would not have gotten that $24 million. But they did tell people that Julian Assange is your enemy and he can't be trusted, which is an establishment talking point.
They got on board with all the main things you're supposed to get on board with.
They're supposed to be a news channel, an independent news channel, and the number one journalist in our lifetime is rotting in a prison because he exposed war crimes. That's why Julian Assange is in prison, because he exposed war crimes, not because of fucking Hillary Clinton's emails, but because he exposed war crimes. That's why. And the Young Turks went out and slandered that guy. They did everything that was asked them by the establishment, including telling people not to do force the vote, which was force the vote.
I've heard you talk about that, but
Force
I don't
the
really
vote,
get
which
it.
was when if you remember the Republicans, when they just got control of Congress, so the extreme right wing of the Republican Party held out for demands. We're not going to vote for you as Speaker, and you can't get elected without our votes. And so we have demands. And so McCarthy caved into every one of their demands, which is what we wanted the squad to do, AOC and all those people. Nancy Pelosi couldn't get elected without the squad's votes. And so now you have leverage. So we wanted them to use their leverage. And the thing that we decided on that they should ask for was a vote on Medicare for all, because we're in the middle of a pandemic. And everybody on the left had agreed that getting a vote on Medicare for all was the goal. For decades, everybody agreed on
So it was
this.
like an actionable thing.
So this is like, hey, this isn't controversial. AOC ran on that. She goes, we can't even get a vote on Medicare for all. When she was running, she complained about it. She goes, we can't even get a vote on Medicare for all on the House floor. So this was their chance to get it. I spearheaded this movement, and the Young Turks got a call from their DNC handler and told them
You think
not
they have
to
a
do
handler?
that. Yes.
Oh, for sure.
And told them, of course, I know there was a phone call that happened. I know this. And so they got a phone call, and they immediately went against. At first, he was for it. Cenk Uyger was like, this is the greatest idea. Of course we should hold him accountable. And then he got the phone call, and then he's like, Jimmy Dore's an asshole, and Jimmy Dore's a jerk, and he's being mean to AOC, and we're against force the vote. Oh, sorry. And we're against force the vote.
What was the reason?
Well, they did a poll because he said that now is not, he goes, now is not the time.
They just go, now's not the time. Because
So
it's the pandemic.
They did a poll of their own paying members. 87% of them wanted them to do force the vote. An unbelievable, overwhelming majority of their own paying members wanted them. They did a fucking poll. How stupid are they that they did? And then they published it. And then I tweeted out, hey, thanks for letting us know that you're going against your own audience. So they lost their own audience. And a good mark of what your real audience is how many people watch you on a live stream right now.
Yeah.
They used to get 18, 20,000, 25,000 people watching a live stream. They get 3, 4, 5,000 people watching them now. Their audience has left them, and the only thing that supports the Young Turks is the algorithm, because they're in bed with YouTube and Google and the establishment, so they get boosted by the corporate algorithm. I don't. I get censored. I get demonetized. I don't get put on YouTube TV. So that's the difference between a real independent news show and somebody who's working for the establishment who's just trying to find ways to get people to click on his shit. And that's all that is.
So I guess the argument that not even him, but like other people would make, it was like, well, yeah, if you don't get in, like if you're not on the inside, how would you actually change things? It'd be like, well, obviously we're not going to pick that super radical guy. It's too crazy for anyone to get on board with, right? Like, but I guess you could just have that argument forever.
Anybody who opposes the establishment, they say is a crazy radical.
Yeah, but they do win. Yeah, it's kind of true because they go, oh, that's
Anybody.
too crazy. It's like, well, that's won a lot of times.
Yeah, Trump won.
Yeah.
After Trump, nothing is impossible.
Yeah, that's true. Even like
Yeah.
if you look at all the guys now that are gaining steam, they aren't that establishment kind of.
No, I mean, people are tired of the establishment. Do you have any prediction on how the Trump thing's going to shake out?
I'm bad at
Like, do you think he's going to jail?
I'm bad. They can do whatever they want. As you can see, that if they can do Iraq, if they can force you to take an mRNA experimental vaccine that they don't know what the results are going to be, that is actually now creating excess deaths. If they can do all that stuff, they can do anything. If they can make you vote for a demented guy, they can imprison the president and get away with it.
It would put you in line a little bit if they're like, maybe not you, but like if they actually were put Trump in jail.
Yeah, that's
He's
what
like
they
in
do
jail
in
for 10
literally-
years. People will be like, man, these people could do anything.
Yeah, that's what they do in other countries. Like,
So-
did you see Prigozhin today?
So I did not, but I'll tell you this. So there is a global capitalist cabal that runs the world, right?
Yeah.
And it's the WEF is part of it, the Bilderberg Group, and people I like how they always like to go, "Oh, the Bilderberg. What do you think they're doing? Why do you think they're meeting in secret? The heads of the goddamn world. They're getting together to have coffee with each other, or you think they're planning on how to fucking run the world? That's exactly what's happening. So there's a cabal of capitalists who run everything, and so what their new tactic is to criminalize the person who opposes the establishment and put him in jail. They did it in Brazil with Lula. So Lula was considered a far left candidate, and they wanted to get rid of him, so they put him in jail.
What about like the George Soroses of the world? Then if it's all the capitalists that run, where do they fit into
he's
this?
one of those, right? So they
But isn't
put,
he like a socialist?
so they put no,
Okay, so that's fake in
that's
your opinion.
fake.
So it's more
So-
about like social socialism, but in reality, it's not. That's kind of the idea.
He's as much as a socialist as Bill Gates. Okay.
Okay.
So they put
Mosquito Man.
They put yes. They put. I'm going to do a story on that pretty soon.
So
actually,
funny.
I just got connected with someone who has mosquito information.
Oh, nice.
I just yeah.
Hell yeah.
So they put Lula in prison in Brazil, and they thought that the center-right candidate was going to win. They fucked up, and Bolsonaro, this extreme right candidate, won. And so then what did they do? They let Lula out of prison because they know he's the only one who can beat Bolsonaro. And then he beats Bolsonaro, and now they've criminalized Bolsonaro so he can't run for president ever again, just like they're doing to Donald Trump. And they're doing the same thing in Pakistan.
Whoa, so that would be like if Trump went to jail on a worse guy and then they like unleash Trump again. That's what happened in Brazil.
Yeah.
And Bolsonaro, yeah, I know. So what's his deal right now?
And so I knew there was something up with Lula when he won, when Joe Biden congratulated him. And I was like, this is not right.
Interesting.
This is not right. Joe Biden is supposed to hate Lula.
Yeah, I guess
And-
the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Kind
So
of thing.
Lula...
So you can't believe
Lula
it's not
is-
butter situation.
So I think Lula is definitely better than anybody else, but he's definitely playing footsies with the establishment in certain ways. That's for sure. And otherwise, they would be overthrowing him again.
Yeah.
Do you think that they're going to try to lock stuff back down for COVID? I know that in the last couple of weeks, that's been sort of popping back
Yes.
up. People are saying they're prepping it. I feel like if they did it now, I would just be like, yeah, no, I wouldn't do anything. I mean, I didn't do much before, but if now...
I mean, they were the thing is that
I feel like people would just be like, I'm
municipalities
not going.
were dishing out fines and stuff to. I think that's how they kind of kept businesses and stuff in line. Was they were like, we're going to fine you every day. But I think. I would like to think, maybe I'm too optimistic, that a lot of businesses would, especially in New York, would be like, go fuck yourself.
Wouldn't you, if you had a business, you'd just be like, you're shutting
not
it
doing
down,
this
you go, yeah,
again.
fuck you.
I hope so. I hope small business people's. So here's the thing I never understood about COVID was that I couldn't go to my corner sporting goods store, which has one employee in it and nobody else, and buy a baseball mitt to give to my nephew for Christmas. I couldn't do that. I had to close that guy down. But I could go to Best Buy and get that.
Yeah.
And I could go to Target and get that. And I could order it online from Amazon that has thousands of people working inside fulfillment centers. But I couldn't go to my store at the corner of my block. There's only one person in it. And this is because of science.
Don't you remember in California, it was like Santa Monica, they arrested a guy surfing
So this is
by himself?
That's a great point. So I had a maniac come to my house when I used to live in Pasadena. And... I got a heads up. Joe Rogan, he had first gone to Joe Rogan's place, and then he said, I'm looking for Jimmy Dore. And so their security guy calls me and says, hey, there's some maniac, and he's got weapons, and he's on his way to your house, and this is the car he's driving. And I look out my window, and it's parked in front of my house. So I call the cops, and I tell them this. An hour later, the cops showed up at my house. But they were able to get that surfer.
Yeah.
But they were able to get that guy surfing.
Also, there was barely any crimes at that moment. So, like the cops here, like they basically became bylaw officers because there was nothing for them to really do, right?
Yeah.
Like everything was shut down. So crime, there was nobody really riding the subways. Like they were just fining people
The only
for
thing worse
whatever
than,
shit.
The only thing worse than a lot of crime and no cops is a lot of cops and no crime.
Yeah, for sure. And then they all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, we have all these new bylaws." So we were. I mean, I don't know if you were there, but there was this restaurant that would stay open on this Japanese place that we would go to all the time. And then one day, just like 50 cops show up at midnight because it was a 10 o'clock curfew.
No Japanese people allowed to own restaurants.
You know, COVID only infects people after 10.
Right, exactly. Exactly. It was so stupid. And
COVID,
then,
while being deadly, is very respectful of mealtime.
this place was the best. It was in the East Village, and then so they were letting people eat there after the curfew, and then they put up this, because it was all outdoor seating, and then they put up this giant fence to just keep it going, and then they eventually got busted. But they showed up, and they're just like, they let everybody, I remember that night, because they let everybody, they just goes, everybody leave, and nobody paid their bills. They were just like, go. Just go.
Can you believe what's going through the heads of one of those cops? It's just like, I don't think for myself. Those cops would be great. Well, comedians.
It's, you know what it is. It's the whole incentive thing where they go like, look, I got a family, I got bills. Like it's so you put the onus on these individuals to make these decisions, and it's like, it's the whole just falling in line. Everybody kind of acts out of self-interest to a degree.
Things are only going to get worse. Things are not going to get better. And they're gonna find, if Donald Trump died tomorrow, they'd find another Donald Trump to make you afraid of.
Yeah,
because that's all they have.
They already start testing out, making you afraid of these other guys.
Get afraid of DeSantis, and they're even and everybody and anything the establishment doesn't like is white supremacists. They even said that about Cornel West.
Yeah,
they go Cornel West. Larry Elder, when he ran for governor in California, the L.A. Times, Larry Elder, white supremacist. And my joke is, well, isn't that just like a black guy to be so sneaky that he would hide his white supremacy behind all that black skin?
Yeah.
Huh?
Did you see? So you haven't seen what happened with Prigozhin?
No, I didn't see.
Oh, okay. So he had an unfortunate accident today. He had a plane crash.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. I don't. So it's Wednesday. This comes out on Friday. Maybe the details will change before this comes out. But the current thing is that him and a bunch of the Wagner group were on a flight that crashed. So this afternoon, or like about 3 hours ago.
So this idea that anytime you think that the establishment would do something crazy, like Building 7, or like that they would kill their political opponents or jail their political opponents,
sure.
Right? Well, they killed President Kennedy. They killed his brother. They killed Martin Luther King, and they killed Malcolm X, and they don't give a shit, and nobody ever. And once they did that, they knew they could do anything, and they did. And there has never been a president who wasn't in the pocket of the military-industrial complex since then. They're all war criminals, all of them. And so Trump was right when he said that there's a deep state and they're running things, and they want more war. Because so what does that tell you? So Chuck Schumer went on Rachel Maddow's show right when Trump got elected, and he was telling the truth about the deep state. He was saying that there is one, and they're controlling things. And so Chuck Schumer, who's the leading Democrat in the Senate, the number one Democrat in the country at that time, went on television and told Rachel Maddow he's being really dumb to go against the intelligence community because they have 6 ways to Sunday to mess with you.
Yeah.
And so
that's pretty telling. Yeah.
What he just admitted was the CIA and the FBI doesn't work for the president.
No.
Well, who the fuck do they work for? Well, they work for capitalists. They work for a military-industrial complex, Wall Street, and that's who they work for, and that's who they've always worked for, and they'll kill anybody. And by the way, everything that the establishment did to Trump during his presidency, and now Russiagating him, trying to make him delegitimized, trying to discredit him, impeach him, and now throw him in jail, they would have done to Bernie Sanders. Mm-hmm. They already did it to Bernie Sanders. They said they said his followers online that were sexist, misogynist, and racist and violent. And
the Bernie bros were getting it for a while.
I remember that came out of nowhere.
And
like that absolutely came out of where you're like all of a sudden you're like the Bernie bros.
Yeah.
Are this?
And so instead of Bernie Sanders standing up against that, he apologized for them like an asshole. And they already Russiagated him. They said, hey, when he was on his way to Nevada, I think it was the Nevada primary, they said, hey, there was a news report that Russia is propping up your campaign, and he didn't go, that's bullshit. He goes, well, that's wrong if he's doing that. He fucking legitimized it. That's, you know why? Because Bernie Sanders doesn't want to end up like Donald Trump, and he knows where his bread is buttered, and he'll never stand up to the establishment. He should be standing up to them right now, saying this is wrong to criminalize our political opponents.
He didn't even want to stand up to them when they said
they cheated him. They fucking cheated him, and he made them pay zero price because Bernie Sanders is a fraud. And he's there to make sure people like me stay inside a pro-war, anti-worker party. That's what he's there to do, and he does it.
Yeah. I would have thought the Russiagate stuff would have. I would have seen a lot of people. Like I knew some people on Twitter who I don't think they had a single tweet that wasn't about that.
There's still
for 4 or 5 years, and then they just like memory hold the entire thing like it never happened, and you don't hear squat from them ever again about it.
Here's another memory hole. Hey, the people who lied to you and said that the vaccine was going to stop the transmission and end the pandemic. Oh no, they never said that. Have you heard that?
Oh, I know a million people like that.
People go, no, they never said that. They just said it would lessen your
I feel like
symptoms.
for dudes, there's a bit of accountability because if someone was like super big vaccine guy, they kind of feel like a bitch a little bit.
So then I'll show these people the video of everybody from Fauci to the President Biden to Rachel Maddow and everybody in between saying that the vaccine stops the virus dead and you can't pass it on to anybody, which was always a lie. And they always knew that was a lie because we found out that the Pfizer never even tested to see if their vaccine stopped transmission. So when I show people that video of them saying it, Fauci, the president, the vice president, Rachel Maddow, everybody saying that the vaccine would stop the virus dead. And I go, see, they lied. They did say that. They go, oh, they just got it wrong. Oh, no, you said they didn't say that.
Yeah.
And now I'm showing you they said it. Why did you think they didn't say that? That's because you were lied to by somebody who said they didn't say that. Guess who lied to you? The same fucking people who said it said they did, and they don't care.
I think
they don't care that they were lied to about COVID.
I think there's a large percentage of people who just do not have the capacity to believe that like the government and institutions are lying to them.
Or I think
they just I think
you're right.
It's just like it scrambles your whole worldview if you be like, wait, so they're all like the government's not here to help me?
That's right.
You know, like if they
I feel like in a lot of countries, everyone sort of knows that they're fucking up to their old tricks.
For sure.
But in the United States, we have so we used to have 50 giant media companies in America, and then in 1996, Wall Street got Bill Clinton elected over George Herbert Walker Bush.
CNN, Fox, Young Turks.
Yeah.
The big three.
And so Bill Clinton was not a lesser of two evils. That's the whole thing they tell you. You got to vote for the Democrats. They're the lesser of two evils. That is not true. So when Herbert Walker Bush, George W. Bush's father, wanted to do NAFTA. NAFTA was going to cut the legs out from underneath the working people and unions. And so the Democrats wouldn't let him do it. George Herbert Walker Bush.
Oh, you're a big pro-union guy, right?
He couldn't get it passed. So they get rid of Wall Street, gets rid of George Herbert Walker Bush. They put in Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton gives cover to the Democrats to vote for NAFTA. They cut the legs out from underneath fucking unions for a decade, and everybody thinks it's good because Bill Clinton did it. And at the same time he did that, Bill Clinton signed the Telecommunications Act in 1996, which took us from 50 giant media companies down to 6. And that's why it's so easy to control Americans, and because the same people who control the politicians now unabashedly control the media 100%. Even on YouTube, I couldn't say anything that they didn't want me to say, or I got a strike for saying, when I said that the vaccine didn't stop transmission, because I figured it out. I figured it out before everybody knew. I figured out because the countries that had the biggest uptake in vaccine would often have the biggest outbreak of COVID. So I knew that wasn't working, and I said that on my show, and they gave me a strike on YouTube. YouTube, said I can't say anything against the WHO.
Yeah.
And guess who funds the WHO? The number one funder of the WHO, they'll tell you, is China. The number one funder of the WHO is Bill Gates. From the
Guy's always up to something.
Bill and Melinda Gates
the
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and if you put together Gavi, that's another private vaccine organization he founded and started. Those two organizations funded as much or more than China. So Bill Gates. So now I can't contradict Bill Gates on YouTube, which means that you don't get to have a scientific debate about anything. So whatever this billionaire says, by the way, Bill Gates never finished college, not a doctor, not a virologist, doesn't have a degree.
Yeah.
But somehow this guy's dictating vaccine policy. And why do you always see Bill Gates on TV and people asking him his opinion on vaccines when he doesn't know fucking anything about it? The reason why is because he's a billionaire and he funds those news magazines.
Right.
That's why. If you know anything about Bill Gates, he got a pie in the face in 1999 and he decided at that moment that he was going to buy journalism. And he has done hundreds of millions of dollars. For instance, PBS, right? So the PBS NewsHour. So they didn't have like a science report or a medical report. Bill Gates says, hey, here's a couple of $1 million. Why don't you have a science report? And hey, here's a story I want you to cover on vaccines that I'm also funding that I want to send to the... Oh, and then they do. And then and nobody fucking knows about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no penalty, like, because here's the thing, they gave you a strike for what they deem to be misinformation.
Right.
But like MSNBC could do misinformation all day.
Yeah, they should
And
get
there's no retroactive strike to be like, hey, like even like what is it, the FTC? Like it's not like the FTC or whatever governing body goes, hey, we got to ding you $200,000 because you guys were wrong on this one, and we're trying to be consistent about this. Like there's just no consistency, right?
Look, zero. Well, that's actually the point I make. The same people who are telling you the vaccine did stop transmission when that was a lie, they never got censored. Those people never, and those videos are still
and
up.
yeah, exactly. Like MSNBC, even not MSNBC on the airwaves,
but even
those
on
clips
YouTube.
on YouTube,
yes.
are fine. Like there's no scenario where MSNBC gets a strike on YouTube.
No, there is no scenario.
It could not happen.
That it cannot.
maybe for having the wrong guest on that said something, and just as a don't have that guy.
Maybe
on.
someone gets a phone call from someone to be like, hey, just don't do this again. But they're not.
They're funded
Their channel's not getting a strike.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're not going to take off the big advertiser for the military-industrial complex, Wall Street, and oil companies.
Hell no.
That's what NBC is.
Yeah.
They're just an advertiser. There's a public relations firm for corporate America. That's what NBC News is. That's what CNN is. That's what Fox News is. That's why they fired Tucker Carlson. You think they fired Tucker? They want you to think they fired Tucker Carlson for lying. You don't get fired for lying in corporate news. You get promoted. Look at Rachel Maddow. She did more Russiagate segments than anybody, and they were all wrong. They were all a fraud. They were all based on absolutely nothing. I was debunking her in real time all the way along. And what happened to her? Did she get fired? She got rewarded with a $35 million contract. She makes $100,000 a day. And if you get $100,000 a day, I bet she's going to tell me the truth.
Of course. I mean, she ain't gonna fuck that up.
So whatever you're hearing about the Ukraine war or COVID or whatever on the corporate news, that's a lie.
Yeah.
And people just can't wrap their brain around that.
No, it's so hard, especially because that was for so long. Everybody was so used to that actually not being lies. And it's only very recently.
Or it was then, and
It always was.
Or it always was, or whatever. But people didn't.
But now we have
think
social
that.
media, so we can debunk
Maybe not
it.
as
like Trump coining CNN or the mainstream news fake news, right? Like
He was right.
He was right, and I don't think anybody really ever heard that in the West before that.
And that was dangerous for the establishment to have the president of the United States say, we're leaving our troops in Syria for the oil. The deep state is running things and they want more war. And the corporate news is the enemy of the people.
Yeah.
Those are all three truths. So they don't hate Donald Trump for... Isn't that the biggest joke, Ryan? That they say they hate Donald Trump because he lies. He's lying in Washington? Oh, my God. Now everybody's going to do it.
Yeah,
Of course they don't hate him for lying. That's how the whole goddamn system runs. It runs on propaganda and lies. They're pissed off because he told those three truths.
Yeah. And it's fucking up their money.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, they're just like, we don't. I mean, CNN is. I don't know how much I'm sure you follow it at length, but like they basically went like full like sports team where they just shook up the whole
100%.
thing. They go, we're firing the coach, we're firing the GM, all the players, we're trading them away, we're going to bring in all the new ones, and we're going to try and be like, hey, we're not the CNN from 5 years ago. And you're just like
same. They're all they work for the same people.
Yeah.
They all work for the establishment. They all are the same people. And you know what's interesting is even that guy. What's that? I'm blanking on his name, but he was the one who exposed Big Pharma and COVID. Why am I blanking on his name? James. Anyway, OMG Media, as it's called.
I'll Google that.
OMG Media. So he did undercover. So this guy started out as kind of
James O'Keefe.
James O'Keefe.
Yeah.
So he
Project Veritas.
So he started out with kind of a sketchy beginning. He was very young, and he was a right wing guy. And then all of a sudden he starts to investigate corporations, right? And he starts to expose them, like he exposed Big Pharma.
Yeah.
And he got a guy who worked at Big Pharma high up to admit that it was a scam, that everything they were doing, they didn't know what...
On the gay dates, right?
Yeah, on the gay dates. That COVID was a scam. The vaccine mandates were a scam. Everything was a scam. He got this guy to admit it undercover. And what happened to James O'Keefe? He got fired from his own media company after that. That's how powerful Big Pharma and the establishment money is. So now he had to start his own media company called OMG.
going to take another second here to tell you about HelloFresh. Now, if you don't know what HelloFresh is already, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You skip the trips to the grocery store. You count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it is America's #1 meal kit. Now, you can look like a big shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you bring a girl over, a guy, say,
Maybe
hey,
a guy.
it doesn't matter where you are. And you go, hey, like I made this thing for you, this like gourmet meal.
Pre-portioned out, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they set you up with all the things, just makes it easier, takes all the hassle out of it.
It's all the instructions. You go, here's all the things. Just do this, and you get this amazing meal.
Yeah, companies like this are just sort of solving a thing where you're just like, I like cooking. Why do I have to go buy all the things? It's just sort of like solves the whole
And
thing
sometimes
for
you go, like if you ever cook at home, sometimes every person knows this. You go to cook at home, have this recipe or whatever, and then you go and look for this one thing. You go, I don't have that.
You're missing one thing. Now you're at the grocery store
and
wasting
you either
another
go
45 minutes.
and you have to buy a gallon of this one thing because you
Yeah,
need
right.
a tablespoon of it, or you just be like, I'm not going to put it in there.
That's exactly what it is. So fall's right around the corner, and HelloFresh is here to help you plan for the busy season ahead with tasty dishes delivered to your door. Simply choose the recipes and pick your delivery date, and then lay back, enjoy the last days of summer, knowing that your food and dinner is covered. The key to the dinner time success, variety. HelloFresh keeps your taste buds on its toes with 40 chef-crafted recipes to select from every week. From family-friendly to fit and wholesome, you'll always find new and exciting recipes to try. So that's one of the things too. Is like you have your cheat day meal.
Sure.
I always like, they do have fit and wholesome meals I like.
Absolutely.
So that's what I've been sort of on, because that's I'm trying to fucking be trim right now. Whatever you are, whether you're just one guy, whether it's a couple, whether you're trying to impress people, whether you're a family, you might have people that are just seem like they're hungry all the time and you're responsible for it. So you can add snacks, sides, and more to your weekly HelloFresh order. Just simply shop HelloFresh Market and take your pick from a curated selection of over 100 add-on items. When life gets busy, don't call delivery. That's a good point. You don't need to be exactly.
You don't need to.
Don't be calling delivery. Solve it beforehand. HelloFresh, it's 25% cheaper than takeout, less expensive than grocery shopping too. Just choose the recipes and receive fresh, pre-portioned ingredients so you can get cooking quick. So what you want to do is go to hellofresh.com/50boyscast and use the code 50boyscast. And you might have guessed it, that is 50% off plus free shipping.
Woo.
So yeah, they're not messing around here.
Not mucking about.
So go to hellofresh.com/50boyscast for America's #1 meal kit.
Yeah. Do you ever think there's a chance that because I know RFK, one of his main things, which I never really knew about this, was that there's only 2 countries in the world that allow pharmaceutical ads on television, right?
New Zealand and the United States. And who had the most draconian COVID policies?
Yeah.
New Zealand
Yep.
and the United States.
Yeah. And do you think there's any hope of getting out of that?
Again, not without revolution, without people literally doing what the truckers did in Canada. And that's another how strong propaganda is. They can make people think that freedom fighters, which is what the truckers were. The truckers, by the way, were vaccinated at a higher rate than the general population in Canada.
And they're calling them white supremacists, and they were like all like Sikhs and all sorts of shit like this.
That's right. They weren't protesting medicine. They were protesting bullshit authoritarianism, and they were right to do that. But the establishment then, and that's why Americans, we watch our corporate media, we can't tell the difference between a freedom fighter. We look at those guys up there and we call them Nazis, and then we look at Nazis in Ukraine and we call them freedom fighters.
Right.
We have it exactly fucking backwards.
Right. I think Trudeau's actually a bit of a freedom fighter because he passed that bill C-18 where you can't even see the news anymore. So
I didn't see that. I don't know what that bill is.
Oh, really? They passed the bill. I was just back in Canada, and you can, on Facebook or Instagram, you can't see the news.
Wow.
You literally cannot see any corporate news. Not even pretty much any news at all.
So
it does not display, and there's
It
fires.
was he thought it was a leverage thing. It was the equivalent of, he goes, listen, if you're going to have this news on, you need to pay this much money, and you should pay them properly. And then like all the companies were just like, no.
Yeah, Facebook's just like, no, we're not going to pay.
You don't have that kind of leverage.
Some news outlet. And so there's wildfires in British Columbia right now, in Kelowna. And so now the premier of British Columbia is now going out, and he's saying, this is so heavy-handed of Meta. Like, they're really like manipulating this whole thing to not display the news. People are trying to share news about these wildfires. And you're like,
not what happened.
Yeah, but you're also like, well, just repeal the bill. It's like the federal government passed this bill, so just repeal it. Just repeal it, and then Meta's like, well, we'll show all this stuff.
Here's the power of Google and YouTube. So, and here's how they protect their So you know that Justin Trudeau is a WEF guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was trained by the WEF, and that they even brag. Klaus Schwab, who's the head of the World Economic Forum, people don't even know what that is. They're actually the ones running everything.
Yeah.
And so Klaus Schwab bragged that the people that they've trained to be global leaders. And what does that mean? That means that they taught them how to screw over people in favor of the establishment and the corporations. And they brag that all their people that they have trained are now in cabinets, all like Justin Trudeau and all.
Oh yeah,
and
it started with Kissinger too.
in
Like,
government,
he was, like,
yes,
one of the super early ones.
exactly
with that shit.
right. Yes,
trained
Klaus
them all.
Schwab says that Kissinger was his mentor.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah.
And so they have those embedded, just like Operation Mockingbird, where they had CIA embedded in every newsroom. They have WEF motherfuckers embedded in every government cabinet in the world. And so I was doing a video about so people hate Justin Trudeau now because of that shit
Oh, he
that he
sucks,
did.
We've heard.
And he's an obvious liar. And he said he never called them Nazis. He never called them white supremacists. And I showed the video on my show of him doing that.
Yeah.
He said he never mandated it. Of course he did. He did all those things. He
Guy
said.
should be working a cashier at fucking Loblaws. It's like
Yes.
stupid.
Yeah.
And so I show a video. So he goes out to do a campaign stop somewhere. He's supposed to go visit somebody and like a photo op. People show up and they hate him. Not a lot of people, maybe 40 people were there, and they're right in his face and they're going, "You're a fucking criminal.
Yeah.
You're a fucking criminal." So I show this on my show. YouTube demonetizes it. So I request a review and all this shit. And I have a liaison at YouTube that actually talks to me, right? And so I said, "Hey, I need you to run this up and give me a real reason why they did this." And so a lot of times my guy will come back and go, "Oh no, it's monetized. It's okay." But a week has already passed, so the news value of it is
Right.
over. So they
We
did
get
their job.
demonetized mostly.
So that's there to make you self-censor. So that's there to make sure you just don't do those stories anymore.
Yeah.
So it took 2 weeks. 2 weeks for them to review this video.
Came back and said Trudeau's too hot. We can't.
Came back, and that's exactly what they said. They said, "You see the dick on this guy?" And I said, "No." They said that this was targeted harassment. That's what
To the
it's called.
prime
To a
minister.
prime minister.
You mean the most powerful guy in the country? We're harassing him.
Oh, my God.
That was that.
I mean, I got on my other channel, I did a show about Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, and I got a defamation notice from the World Economic Forum on my YouTube channel saying that this video could not be played in 5 countries, all European for whatever reason. And then, but that was it. There's no like strike. And then literally less than a week later, I got a strike for nothing. Like just absolutely nothing. Some joke. Like
That's what they do.
Yeah,
that's how they control you and everybody. And by the way, when I was at the Young Turks, they were all okay with censorship. That was another thing I had to push back on them again. They wanted Alex Jones to be censored, and I'm like, you guys can't be this fucking stupid. You're an independent news show, and you want another independent news guy to be censored, no matter what the fuck he said. You don't think that's going to come back to get you? Well, they knew it wasn't going to come back to get them because they're in bed with the establishment. But it does come back to get everybody else. When they started with Alex Jones, now it's the leading doctors in their field, the leading scientists in their field, and the leading politicians, and the leading YouTubers and podcasts. They're all getting censored all the time. It wasn't just Alex Jones. They used Alex Jones as a fucking rouge to do it to everybody else. And we got to save and protect everybody. They don't give a fuck about anybody. What the establishment cares about is protecting themselves and people like me and anybody else who has a voice to... Alex Jones just predicted they're going to bring back... By the way, Alex Jones, way more accurate than MSNBC, CNN, and
for
Fox
sure.
News. That's the joke.
That's the problem is there's no tally. Nobody's keeping score.
They need their
There should
tally
be a
on
fucking
screen.
scoreboard where you could see every person, and when someone starts talking
Weatherman
shit,
have the accuracy.
yeah, your accuracy. And when you start talking shit, you got to be like, yeah, you know what? You might be talking shit right now, Rachel Maddow or Alex Jones or whatever, but like, here's your
90% right. Although they'd all game it.
Of course.
You would
There's a
cram in
subjectivity element.
like not important things to be right, about.
Yeah, you just like, no,
Pad your
yeah, it was
tally.
88 degrees today.
This guy's cramming in layups, to get it up.
So where do you guys come down on the gender affirming care for kids?
I think probably like one's too
Mandatory.
young. 2, I think, is when it should start.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Well, on the topic,
But if you wait till they're 2, it's going to cause a lot of harm, I think.
Yeah.
Emotional.
You can really fuck
I just
up.
don't want to touch like a one. I don't think the doctor should be touching 1-year-old's dicks. Like if you wait till it's 2, it's like a little less weird.
So they already do when they're born. They cut the tip of their dick off. I had mine cut off.
Me too. Yeah,
And I've
Just didn't make a dent though.
I'm still pissed off about it because I needed it.
They have the power lifter in Canada. Dude,
Wasn't there a
this
power-
is the craziest stuff when people, it's like, at some point you can't admit this is crazy.
That's the thing. This isn't the crazy stuff.
Canadian
It's the
powerlifter
crazy
broke the
lies.
record by like
200 kilos.
Yeah. It's like so funny, right?
And so
One Yokozuna.
And so what that power lifter would be called in my world is a misogynist.
Sure, yeah.
And so they want to call me a phobe because I'm against biological males invading women's spaces. And they're going to call me a transphobe. No, you're a misogynist because you don't respect women and women's spaces.
Yeah.
And so you're the asshole, and I'm not the asshole.
I'm a misogynist and I'm against it.
Well, the whole thing is about, like, somehow they've tried to pretend that if you're against drag shows for toddlers, that you're against drag queens. No, I love drag queens.
Yeah.
What are drag queens? Drag queens are not transvestite. They're not
men.
They're just men, biological males who like dressing up as a bitchy woman and acting like a cunt. And that's
really.
what a fucking drag queen. So you would go there not because it was family hour. You went there because they were going to be the most caustic, mean, nasty motherfuckers.
And you were drinking, and it was 11 at night.
And I was unbelievably impolite. You loved it, right? And then now you want to bring children into that. That makes me want to arrest you. That's what that does. Or how about the people who say it's all about literature or literacy?
Yeah.
I go, well, how does that present itself? Your love for literacy. Well, I like to put on some fake tits, some Dolly Parton. A Dolly Parton wig, some Megyn Kelly eyelashes, tuck my dick between my ass cheeks, and then go, read Dr. Seuss to kids.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure you're a fucking pervert.
Or they're just ideologues, and they're trying to advance something via this.
Can you fucking
getting them as
believe
young
they're
as
trying to
possible.
push that bullshit on me that a fucking guy with a dick stuffed up between his ass cheeks, dressed like Dolly Parton, just wants to read to my fucking kids? Fuck you.
Yeah. This, like, the weightlifting stuff, though, I feel like this is more of an assault on just, like, common sense. Like, they're really trying to just, because you're like, yeah, obviously once it's a 200 kilogram victory, like, you won by 200 kilograms over the next person, you're like, okay, what are we doing?
So in California,
How much can we get?
Yeah, you're not like you didn't win by 4 kilograms. You go, good stuff there. You just narrowly edged them out.
in California, where I live now, I'm originally from Chicago. In California, used to be the liberals used to err on the side of protecting children. For instance, there's a law in California that says you cannot use a tanning bed until you're 18, even if your parents say it's okay. But now those same liberals who passed that law to protect children now say it's okay to have an adult chop your dick off.
Yeah.
I guess as long as if your dick doesn't get exposed to UV rays, then I guess it's okay to cut it off.
Yeah.
I feel
Well,
like-
the thing is, you have to say that if they don't let you use the tanning bed, you're going to kill yourself.
And then
and then you go, look, if I'm not having this nice tan as a 14-year-old, I'm going to kill myself, and then they have to let you use it.
and the big problem with
I see myself as tan mom, and if you're not going to let me affirm that, when I look in the mirror, I see tan mom. You need to let me affirm that.
what was the point I wanted to make? The point I forget what.
Well, I was-
80% of
Oh, it's California, yeah.
80% of kids who experience body dysmorphia or gender dysmorphia, those might be different things, who knows? But I do know that the people who experience that, 80% of them grow out of it. And I know a lot of people firsthand who did. There's a woman who works at the Jimmy Dore show who said that when she was a kid, she was like 11 or 12, and she started to develop breasts. She didn't want them. She wanted to be like her older brother.
Selfish.
She always wanted to be more like him. She didn't want to be a girl, and she wanted to have she didn't want breasts. And she goes, could you imagine now I would have my parent go, well, maybe we should get you on puberty blockers, and maybe we should get...
Or a mastectomy.
And she goes, and now, or a mastectomy. She goes, well, now I'm glad that I have a gay friend who told me, he said, when I was a kid, I used to like to dress up in my sister's clothing, and my mom caught me. He goes, thank God it was 25 years ago, and she just sent me to therapy. But now, if they would have affirmed it and then said I was trans and I wasn't a boy anymore, and they would have put me on and got, he goes, but he's 100%. He says I'm a cis male gay guy, which is just like being a white supremacist now in
Essentially.
LGBTQ.
Yeah. There was just actually an article in the Toronto Star yesterday about this family. So it's a mother,
Oh, yeah, I saw you
father,
post this.
daughter, and then the father and daughter both transitioned, and then the mother did. Or I don't know, but they're
What are
all
the
three.
chances?
That's what I literally said. I go, what are the fucking odds of that?
You're like, yeah, it's a Halloween costume.
Yeah.
At that
But you're
point.
like, all
right.
three of you are trans? Like,
Not a chance. But
it's
they're all.
impossible.
And are there any trans people who aren't?
I mean, it's as possible as all three of you being like Christian or vegan, I guess,
No, there's no.
or whatever, or maybe not,
No.
not even because there's
People
like
with
medical
people
interventions here.
with genuine body dysmorphia. It's like 0.0% of people. It's not.
yeah.
Well, you do the math. 0.001 times 0.001 times 0.001. That's your answer.
Not fucking possible.
I forget what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Like kind of all that stuff a little bit. It kind of, I guess you're sort of the more old school of like left wing, but it's funny because the same with the thing with your saying about the truckers is a lot of the guys who are like the socialist guys. And this happens to the parties too. But you're like, oh, I'm like for the working class, and it was like you hate them. You know, I always think that's so funny though because they're always going on about like how
Those limousine liberals who when they I always
you
say-
hate those people, and you're claiming your whole thing is about helping them. It's like your worst enemy, kind of.
Yeah. Did you see this? The Starbucks union, what they just recently did?
What?
Because normally unions used to petition for like better conditions or whatever,
Jesus.
and they organized a walkout at Starbucks over wanting to put up LGBT
Yeah.
like stuff in the
Yeah,
store.
so that's
They
the
should
opposite.
petition the $5 fucking lattes down.
Well,
to
that's
$3
the
if they're gonna
thing
do
is like
something.
it just
So that's
it's
got
crazy how
nothing-
unions have switched. Where like
That's
you used
good.
to be like we want
No.
more money, we want more insurance, whatever. And now they're like we just want more flags.
I mean, if you're the company, you'd be like,
Of
oh
course.
no,
that's of course the flags. They probably
Heaven
are like
forbid we
they're
have to put the flag
All right,
up."
let's
So what that is someone infiltrating that
PSYOP.
that union. That's exactly what that is. So
Yeah.
that's a way to divide.
But I
workers.
will say, like Starbucks, for as long as I've been a patron, and I go there, they disproportionately hire people who are LGBT, like for whatever
I
reason.
think that's who likes being baristas.
Oh, whatever. That's fine. That's not my issue. But I'm saying, like, I think that is to a degree the will of the
That's like they're-
employees there. It's just it's misguided.
So Christian Smalls is the Amazon organizer who organized the union on Staten Island. He's a black guy who used to work at that fulfillment center, and they fired him, and then he organized a union there. And so what I try to tell people is I go, how do you think he did that? Do you think he said, hey, who's here against LGBTQ rights? Okay, you're out. Who's a gun nut? Okay, you're out. Who supports Donald Trump? Okay, you're out.
Right.
That's not how you organize fucking workers and unions. What you do is who here wants to, because all those guys on Staten Island are fucking white Trumpers,
Yeah.
right? And so he got those guys. That's not how you organize. He organized by saying, "Hey, we have a common interest. It's economic and it's class, and we're going to go against the oligarchs
Which is
and
what
Jeff
unions
Bezos."
always were.
And that's what unions are supposed to be. They're supposed to be about economics, and it's not. And so whenever you see an organization that leads with LGBTQ rights, that's a fucking infiltrated organization, and they're phony. But
they're all going along with it,
Unless
though.
it's an LGBTQ, like Code Pink, right? So they're supposed to be anti-war. We had a big anti-war rally in Washington, D.C. in February, and they didn't go to it because they didn't think that the people who were speaking, enough of them were good on LGBTQ rights.
There you go.
Okay, so that's not how you... So that shows you that Code Pink is just a bunch of housewives who are fucking at a social organization.
Being anti-war is sort of like
That's
part
what
of the
that is.
aesthetic, but they're not.
They're not anti-war. They're not. They just want to have people to hang out with. If they really were anti-war, they would have been at that anti-war rally, which just shows they're cosplaying as anti-war people.
Sure.
That's what that is. Fuck Code Pink.
Right.
And so that's whenever you see that happening, people leading with the LGBTQ thing. Hey, as far as I can tell, they won their rights not by what they're doing today. The way LGBTQ got to be considered equal partners in society, which they fucking are, right? Now,
absolutely.
Are you kidding? Right? Every corporation embraces them. The government embraces them. The president of the everybody,
Prime Minister of Canada.
the prime minister of Canada, everybody. So this idea,
Does he ever?
and so now what they're doing now has nothing to do with equality, has nothing to do with gaining rights. What they're doing is invading people's spaces and mutilating children, and that has nothing to do with fucking anything, and that's not LGBTQ.
It really does throw people off the trail, though. If you get, you know what I mean, getting arguments about all that stuff.
Absolutely.
And that's a total distraction from the economic war that's being waged on people. That's exactly what this is.
Well, there's another on the social stuff. There's one more that I wanted to hear your opinion on that. Because we always talk about this, but there's a new one where There's like a fat traveler, and it's a big nightmare right now because they basically the captain came on the intercom and he's like, we got a weight issue. So but then made her move. And
she was the imbalance because they like have to balance the plane.
But it's so funny just being like 500 pounds and the captain being like, oh, we're gonna need to do a little rebalancing here. I'm not gonna single out someone, but you probably know who you are.
It's like, so it goes, if anybody's here in 2 seats, please stand up.
So it goes on, but that's another one where, so obviously, being fat's great and stuff's ridiculous, but more importantly, like, do you think that there's any solution to how fat people are getting, or is it just not going to keep getting worse? And with it really is like, if you start looking at the foods, you have to try so hard to sort of, stay away from being fat if you're just a normal person.
I feel, again, the explosion of obesity in the United States didn't come because a bunch of people decided to start overeating.
Yeah, what happened?
What happened was we're all eating fucking processed food and junk food and garbage, and that's why we all have these gigantic fridges. If you go to Europe, they have tiny fridges.
Well, that's a good point.
So they have to go out.
Smaller
and buy,
fridges might help.
Smaller fridges, and you buy fresh food all the time, and that's why people aren't as fucking sick in other countries.
I mean, the wheat is legitimately different here too.
Here's exactly a great point. So in the United States, they spray the wheat with glycerol. During COVID, I would cook and I would get all my pasta from Italy. People say that's a big carbon footprint. Yeah, but they don't spray it with poison.
Yeah.
So in America, we spray all our wheat with glyphosate, right? Bobby Kennedy explained this on my show.
What's glyphosate?
Basically like Roundup or something.
Yeah. It's a poison, and it's supposed to get all the bugs off it and everything. But that's why, and ever since they started doing shit like that, we've had an explosion of gluten. Oh, I can't take gluten.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's all these different things that people are having that they didn't have decades ago, and we have now, and it's because Monsanto and fucks like that are running our food supply.
Yeah. I have a friend from.
If you knew what they did to corn, you would never eat corn.
What do
again.
they do to corn?
So they figured out a way.
I do like corn. So
this guy loves corn. Oh, you're about to.
It's my favorite food.
Mine might go into a deep depression.
A cup of corn?
They figured out a way. This was explained to me by Bobby Kennedy. They figured out a way to genetically modify corn, so you can fucking spray glyphosate on it and it doesn't kill it. Kills everything else except that corn.
All the bugs.
Okay, so their argument about it is this is how we make better, cheaper food.
Higher
and less
yields,
people
cheaper.
less people will be in poverty. That's kind of the argument, right?
Yeah, but I think that would be their argument.
In America,
46%.
there's no real reason for that because there's not a poverty issue in America.
We went from 6% people having chronic illness to 46% having chronic illness, and it's because of people like Montana when they're poisoning our food, and they're also poisoning. They're putting that corn syrup shit. They put it in every high fructose corn syrup, which is also fucking poison. Also comes from corn, and they put it in every. It's in bread.
It's a full-on attack against you from every angle.
But I think what it really is just like it's all these companies who operate for profit, and they're trying to maximize profit. These are all corporations
and
trying
the
to
regulatory
so they cut every corner. They're like, look, sugar's expensive. High fructose corn syrup is cheap.
Okay, but I think that if you talk to, for example, that David Friedman, what's his name?
Friedberg?
Like Friedberg, that guy worked at Monsanto, right?
Yeah.
And he tells a different version of it, which, it doesn't sound insane that, this is how we were able to, produce in like amounts of food that raise so much people out of poverty. That's the argument.
Yeah,
right?
I understand that.
Same thing you might make about pollution in places like India or China or whatever, right? But then what we were talking about sort of...
Well, just look into it and you'll find out.
Well,
I think I'm more on...
With just the wheat, going back to the wheat thing, like my friend his family's out from Germany, and they'll come over to like Canada, and they're just like, we can't eat like the wheat products.
Oh, they're not... Their stomachs aren't ready for that.
It makes them like ill. And
it makes me ill. I do feel like I'm always feeling a little bit sick from food.
And like elevated like inflation, not inflation.
Yes, inflammation markers.
They just feel, they come here and they eat the same shit and they feel bad. Like that.
And the only person who's talking about it is Bobby Kennedy, and the only person who wants to do anything about it is Bobby Kennedy.
He's got some fucks.
That's a good platform to be like, I'm gonna fix this food shit.
Yeah, you know what's not a good platform? The fucking CIA killed my uncle and my dad.
I think that is a good platform.
I mean, I guess, except for that, I don't know if you could just call. I guess he's saying they're so brazen.
Vivek's being like, "You're all fired the minute I'm in." That's a crazy. That's a more brave platform.
I mean, the reason why they're allowing Bobby Kennedy, they are. I mean, the media assault on him is.
Is he your favorite guy right now?
No.
Okay, who's your favorite candidate?
I mean,
or
I don't.
You don't really have a good one.
I'm pushing
Biden?
on Cornel. I like Cornel West for a lot of reasons. Although Cornel West fell down pretty hard on COVID, just like the Green Party did on Russiagate and COVID and stuff. So I mean,
I give people a bit of a pass on that if they're older.
I've always been a fan. I'm going to interview Cornell on September 6th, so I'll ask him what he has to say about that, and hopefully he changed his mind.
Yeah, maybe
on
he's
that.
like, I was off on
because if
that.
you can't get COVID right, then that's a big deal, man. That was an assault on the globe. Not only but it was assault on our civil rights. It was assault on my bodily autonomy. It was criminal act.
Assault on your
Who politically
intelligence.
did get it right?
Who got COVID?
DeSantis.
Yeah.
COVID?
Yeah.
I mean,
DeSantis.
DeSantis got it more right, but he did also.
like, did anybody nail it?
What do you mean?
No.
As far as Florida, didn't they a little bit? Just being
They
like,
got
we're
it-
not doing all this shit.
Yeah. They got it obviously in terms.
That was his
of,
thing
the
that he did.
lockdowns.
That's why everyone likes him.
Yeah.
Well, he was
I
definitely.
meant more on not a state level. I meant more.
He
on
was
like a-
definitely giving people monoclonals,
Yeah.
and you couldn't get monoclonals in blue. It was harder to get monoclonals in blue states than it was in red states. What the fuck? That's crazy, and that's a real treatment for COVID, which I don't know how to understand how they kept their emergency use authorization for their vaccines when everybody knew they had monoclonals what actually treats COVID. That's why Trump and Chris Christie, when they got COVID, they didn't get sick and they didn't die because they got monoclonals, and they didn't tell anybody that they were giving people
Oh, Chris Christie
monoclonals.
did it on the DL?
All of them.
Maybe he didn't know. They just put it in one of his burgers and the burger disappeared.
So again, we've been lied to on a scale that our brains can't comprehend. Yeah, I really I'm looking forward to talking with Cornel West on September 6th, and I hope he needs better messaging as far as I can tell. I think Cornel West. I agree with almost everything he says, and I personally I know he has integrity, and. So that's important, right? And he does see the game that's being played by both corporations, right? His messaging is not good, as far as I can tell, and I offered to help him with it, and I've silenced. So I'd offer to do fundraising for him. I've silenced. So they don't want anything. It doesn't seem like the Green Party and them want anything to do with me. So good luck to them.
Do you see any? Because I know that it sounds like a lot of doom a bit, but like even the fact that people like you are getting so popular, I feel like a lot of people are sort of in the last little bit like normal people being like, they're all fucking liars. I feel like that sentiment sort of popped off. Do you see that as positive, or do you think it's
I think
doesn't
that's
matter?
very positive. You have to stop listening to the establishment and know that they're all liars for anything to happen. And that's why a lot of people who now are fans of mine don't agree with me politically, but they appreciate that I don't demonize them as another American. I don't think that they're the problem and that we share a common enemy.
Yeah.
And they appreciate that when I say something, they know I mean it and I'm not lying. And so that's all they want. That's all anybody wants, right? And so, and that's my message.
It's impossible to argue with someone when you're just like, it's bad faith. Yeah, you go, what's the point of even talking to this person?
And so we've all been lied to. I was lied to by Bernie Sanders and the Democratic Party. I was lied to by Barack Obama. And that's why I'm more critical of the Democrats than I am of the... I don't spend much time criticizing the Republicans. I do criticize them.
What do you think their biggest problem is? And yeah, why
Same
don't
thing.
you
They're all
criticize them as much?
they're all
You think that one's more of a given to you? Is that the reason
Yeah,
where it's like
it's like-
everyone already thinks that, so there's no point in saying
yeah.
it?
It's like, do you really need me to criticize Trump again? Is that what you guys
Right.
do?
There's a
Where else
shortage
could you,
of that.
You covered it.
where else could you possibly get that?
It's been covered.
So my mission has always been at my show to expose that both parties work for the same people and the Democrats aren't the lesser of two evil. That's a lie. And so that's my mission at my show. And so that's why I focus on the Democrats, because I was a Democrat and I didn't get betrayed by the Republicans. I got betrayed by the Democrats.
Yeah, it feels like. Do you think? And we'll wrap up in maybe after this. But do you feel like you noticed that the like conservatives online have gotten like more puritanical and like in the last little bit?
How so?
Well, just even the movements of like, let's say porn's bad, or there should be more censorship on the other side. It does feel like the reaction to the last 6 years is going to result in like it kind of went through sort of a like what happens in the Republicans post Trump. It might just go back to sort of a more puritanical thing. Or do you not see that? Am I imagining that?
I mean, I hope not. I thought that the right wing
Online, I see it a little bit.
when I see the I mean, maybe. I mean, there's crazy Republicans, there's crazy Democrats,
Yeah.
there's people who want to censor on both sides of the aisle. In fact, they do. So I think we have to stand up to the establishment. And it's weird how traditional liberal, which is what I consider myself, traditional liberal or an old school liberal, those values that we used to think were values now aren't anymore. Like we used to think freedom of speech, right? No censorship. That was a value. They've completely flipped.
It was a pole shift. It was like a legitimate, like the pole shift did.
Yes.
It was like they just swapped.
It was like, so now
And
if
you're
you're
like,
for, so I've seen comedians on stage say, I don't, if you're for free speech because you're a right winger, what? I thought Americans are supposed to be for free speech.
Absolutely.
Now that's considered a pejorative to say you're for freedom
And
of
it was like the
speech.
left cared about the kids.
Right.
And now it's the right that cares about
Now
the
it's
kids.
the right that it's exactly right.
It was like it totally so many things.
I think
fully
everyone always uses the kids to get what they want. That's the number one.
No,
way
but it
is
was
to be
like
think of the children.
No, but the right, because the right
What
was
do you-
was basically considered the people who were like the religious people, and the religious ones like in the churches were the ones who were abusing the kids, and so it was the left were like pointing their fingers over, and now it's switched. with
Yeah,
the
but
gender stuff.
you could. I know what you mean, but okay, who was trying to get Marilyn Manson away from kids or whatever? There's always been like we need to keep that.
Yeah.
I feel like
That was Al Gore
I
and
just
his
feel
wife.
like the best way to get moms,
Tipper.
the best way to get moms on board with politics is to make it about the kids, and I think that's why it's always like an effective thing.
So the interesting thing about that was like during COVID, like masking kids. So everybody said that they were acting in the interest of kids, but it turns out the people who wanted to mask kids were not acting in the interest of kids, and they had no interest in getting informed about it. And the people who wanted to keep schools closed down, they said they were doing it in the interest of kids.
Well, maybe they don't want to actually help the kids; they want to look like they think and care about.
That's
helping
it. They want to
kids.
virtue signal. People who are wearing masks today, they're virtue signaling, or they've been completely brainwashed because we all know
You should put a fucking clown paint on instead of your mask.
before COVID and during COVID and after COVID, there's never been science that says masking works for an airborne virus. It doesn't work at population level. It doesn't work. And we all knew in June of 2021, Andy Slavitt, who was Joe Biden's chief in charge of COVID response, he tweeted out, this is before Omicron. He tweeted out the Delta COVID is so contagious that everyone is going to be infected. He said that in June of 2021. No one heard him say it. Yeah. I heard him say it, and I would show it on my show over and over and over. And I'm like, why do you want to mandate someone else get a vaccine if the guy in charge of the vaccine thing said everyone's going to get it anyway? Why do you want to make it mandated? And nobody had they would say stupid things like, oh, well, hospital beds. We have to. No, the answer to that we don't have enough hospital beds for sick people in the richest country in the world is more fucking hospital beds, not forcing people to take an experimental gene therapy with no long-term studies. Yeah. That's not the answer to an economic problem.
Yeah, you remember in China, right at the beginning of COVID too, when they were putting up hospitals once a week?
Like in a week, they built a whole hospital.
Brand new fucking
brand
hospital.
New hospital.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Jimmy Dore, everyone.
Yeah.
Great rants. Actually, when we told you we were having her on, our buddy JJ sent us your rant on Tucker Carlson, which was actually pretty fire. You were cooking.
Well, I just don't, if I get on corporate news, I don't let them talk. I just, I make them stop me. They're yelling in my ear when I'm
Oh, really? They're saying, shut up.
They're like, okay.
You just
all
take
right.
the earpiece
You
out?
have to stop. You
Can't take it anymore. No more.
Hell yeah, dude. This is coming out Friday, by the way, which is when your show is, right?
Yeah, so
are they sold out, or do you have a
first show sold
do you
out?
have some left for the second one?
Second 10 p.m. show at the
York.
Gramercy Theater. There's still tickets available for the
That'd be great.
show.
New York, and then the Jimmy Dore show 3 days a week with Kurt, who's friend of the
Metzger.
pod. Yeah, he's one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
So
I know.
funny.
I'm real lucky to have Kurt on.
No, that's great that you guys are doing it together. It's a good duo.
Yeah. Well, he was one of those guys who he said, I didn't know there were liberals like you out there. That's what he said. I thought they were all, and so that was I took it as a compliment, and so we can work together really well.
Hell yeah. All right, this has been the Boys Cast.